RFK comes from, in my dad's world, comes from what would be considered liberal, freedom of choice in what you'd put in your body. Wow, what a crazy concept. And so, but RFK is just a human being, a good human being who just wants people healthy. He doesn't really care, Brian, whether whatever your political beliefs are, he really doesn't care. He just wants you healthy. He wants you to be as healthy as you possibly can. He wants your children and his grandchildren and my children to have proper information, transparency in the things that they put in their body. So
instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on another fun-filled episode, yes, of the Brian Nichols Show. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by our awesome sponsors, AMP America. Go get the news you need to know without the corporate media bias or fluff. AmpAmerica.com. We have podcasts, articles, news, opinion pieces, and more. One more time, AmpAmerica.com. Also, the Brian Nichols Show is powered by our phenomenal studio sponsor, Cardio Miracle. Folks, stick around if you want to learn more about, yes, the best heart health supplement in the world that will help lower your blood pressure, lower that resting heart rate while improving that pump in the gym. Yeah, stick around. We're going to talk about that more later in today's episode. But first, we're digging into all things RFK. He is officially the head of the HHS. What does that mean for America? What does that mean for our health? So joining us today from Operation World Without Cancer, John Richardson. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Brian. I love your energy. I love the fact that your audience gets to hear the truth and that you cover it all. So I'm here to help them understand that this RFK Jr. Finalization of his nomination, or
say that 10 times fast. Yeah.
Confirmation is world changing, and even more so than President Trump being president. But without President Trump being president, RFK wouldn't be the head of HHS. It's an amazing time to be alive, Brian, and I'm excited to come here and talk to your audience about it.
I'm excited myself to talk about this, John. So for folks who've been playing along with the home game for the show for a while, we were actually in the RFK camp there back during the actual election up until he dropped out and then subsequently endorsed Donald Trump. And from my perspective, right, it really comes down to health and legitimate health, John. For folks who've listened to the show for a long time, they know my personal story. I used to weigh 385 plus pounds, lost 180 pounds through just good old fashioned diet and exercise. And that opened the door for me starting to look into what I'm eating, the poisons that people put into our food, that they put into the prescription medications, all this other stuff that you really don't start to think about until you start thinking about your health. And now fast forward to where we are here in 2025, we have the Make America Healthy movement actually having some success, not just from getting their message out there, but getting RFK into, in this case, the government bureaucracies that for so long, they really just kept things behind lock and key. Oh, you want to ask a question? Sorry, we can't answer that question. It's against the rules. Now, RFK's in there and he's starting to peel back all the layers of the onion. But before we go into what we expect, I almost said from JFK, from RFK, that is, in HHS, John, do us a favor, just a quick intro to yourself, Operation World Without Cancer, and also what kind of got you into this world where you're such a proponent of what RFK Jr. is doing?
Well, it is a long story, but I'll make it very fast. My dad was a physician in 1972, gave his life to the natural treatment of cancer. He was an MD, University of Rochester graduate. He fought that battle for 7 years until they arrested him 4 times, raided his practice 8 times, sued him 4 times, and then finally took away his license. And then he died at a fairly young age because he was actually wiping out cancer with natural remedies back in the early 1970s. And so basically he was kind of the RFK Jr. of his time, but he was before his time when the mass media at the time, there was only, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and 3 other television stations. So there was easy to demonize my father, even though he was a God-fearing Christian, brilliant man, ran for Congress, had all sorts of friends. So he was, I would say politically, opposite of RFK back in the 1970s. They were considered liberals. My dad was always considered a conservative. But as far as his health approach, he was always considered liberal. The hippies loved my dad. He was in Berkeley. He used to be a hero of the hippies and the health movement and the people that had the braided armpits. And for example, he was an MD and none of his kids were vaccinated, and none of my 11 kids have been vaccinated. That seems like a horrible thing to say. And I'm not on this show to talk about vaccines, but because he was such a conservative, he chose health-wise to do things that used to be liberals were against. So RFK comes from, in my dad's world, comes from what would be considered liberal, freedom of choice in what you'd put in your body. Wow, what a crazy concept. And so, but RFK is just a human being, a good human being who just wants people healthy. He doesn't really care, Brian, whether whatever your political beliefs are, he really doesn't care. He just wants you healthy. He wants you to be as healthy as you possibly can. And he wants your children and his grandchildren and my children to have proper information, transparency in the things that they put in their body. So it is not a political issue, Brian. It's a truth and transparency issue. And that's why my dad would have loved what RFK is doing right now. And I love what RFK is doing right now. And I've been doing it for 30 years, helping people know that cancer is not something that's a death sentence. It's a natural thing that happens to us if we don't have the right nutrition and health in our body, and nobody has to die of cancer. RFK Jr. said it on stage about a month before he was elected, or before Trump was elected, that he promises he's going to get rid of chronic diseases in the next 4 years, or we can fire him. The whole audience erupted and laughed, but he said it right here in Phoenix, Arizona, with Callie Means on the stage and some other Alex, I can't remember her last name right this second, but anyway, Alex Clark and a bunch of other people from Turning Point USA that before Trump was even elected, that they committed they were going to fix our food, get us transparency about vaccines so they can make proper decisions, stop direct to consumer advertising with pharmaceuticals. So that's where I'm at, Brian. And that's the quick story. I literally, I could go on for an hour about the long story, but that's the quick story.
I appreciate that. And just one thing before we move forward to what we can expect from an RFK administration over at the HHS. You hinted at something, your dad being probably more of you said a conservative back in the day. Yeah. And like this idea, RFK is a liberal. I look at where we are today, John, and man, the labels really don't matter like they used to, right? Because if anything right now, I mean, I look at the labels as a means to an end, for better or for worse. And I look at where and I'll just say, the generalized Republican GOP base is. They seem to be a lot more on board with trying to bring this vision of making America healthy forward when compared to our friends on the Democratic side of the aisle. And that's not to say, there's folks on the Democratic side of the aisle who don't value health. No, but in terms of actually from a policy perspective, making real substantive changes, I don't know. I've only really seen this come from right now, what we're seeing happen with Donald Trump winning and now all the changes therein. And this isn't just a health thing. This is across the board. We're seeing changes from a policy prescription, but also from these federal bureaucracies across the board like we haven't seen in generations. So that's a segue, if you ever had one there, John, to what we can expect from RFK now that he is in this federal bureaucracy of the HHS, the Health and Human Services. So RFK Jr. is replacing one questioning Rachel Levine. I say questioning for many reasons, and you can be the judge of why that would be. But let's kind of look at where RFK is today. And what would you say, John, are some of the top, let's say 2 or 3 issues that you would expect RFK, not necessarily day one, but let's say month 1, 6 months in, a year in. What should we expect to see from an outcome perspective with, again, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.?
Well, one of the things that happened before he was even confirmed was that President Trump signed an executive order that we got out of the WHO. I had known that was coming months before, and some of my friends said, "How did you know all this stuff?" Because I literally have friends that are on his council right now. It's called the Global Wellness Forum, which is replacing the WHO. I have friends that are on the seats of this and that are met within 2 hours of him being confirmed, met with him via Zoom calls that are talking about changing the food pyramid. That hasn't been updated, Brian, since 2011. And I don't know about you, but we've discovered a lot of things different about our food since 2011. We've had a lot of people waking up. I'm talking
John, I got in trouble back a couple of years ago because I made the very, very bold statement that I dare say that the food pyramid has killed more people than COVID ever did.
Well, no, now you sound like yeah, duh, Brian. No kidding. You mean sugar's bad for you, Brian?
What?
What are you
saying
talking about? Oh gosh, saying it so. You mean taking 10 different prescription drugs is not really good for your metabolism? Yeah, it's there's still a whole bunch of audience out there that doesn't realize it, but RFK does know it. I mean, you look at the guy; he's better in shape than a lot of people way younger than him. But one of the things, a lot of people on my side of the aisle, and when I say my side of the aisle, the health freedom movement, they've been doing this a long time. They all wanted him to go after the vaccines right up front, and like that was the biggest priority. But he's put it out there that yes, that's a priority, but we have the statistics. He just wants it to be transparent. He wants people to know if they're going to choose to have a vaccine, which I have chosen for myself not to, and I've chosen for my children, but I had the data, I had the information, and I knew what the risks were. And if someone showed me a vaccine that worked, and if it was proven, they did the double-blind studies, I'd be crazy not to give it to my children because I want the best for them. But he says he can help more people in the short term by just making our food healthier. So when you pick up a bag of Cheetos in the United States, or a bag of Cheetos from the European country or Canada, the menu, the recipe doesn't look anything alike. When you make bread, it should be flour, leaven. It should be 4 ingredients.
Yeah.
And I just had someone in here, or pasta. These things should be four ingredients. Even at a healthy store, you've got a list of 24 different other ingredients. Like, what are these? What is it about our food now, Brian, that we didn't have?
Hey folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140/90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120/80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. And I couldn't believe it. But the benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle, and how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So, by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at The Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show.
When I was a kid, food had, if you got carrot juices, had carrots and water. Bread was like, wheat, flour, and whatever else, 2 or 3 ingredients. And so a lot of these things, even junk food, is unhealthier now than it was back when I was a kid. So people say, well, I've been eating this garbage for years, but the disease rates are going through the roof. Kids' obesity in children is 50%. Diabetes is 33%. Brian, there's doctors that I know I talked to that 20 years ago, they'd have one diabetic case, in a year. And now a third of their patients coming in have diabetes. So those are the first things that RFK is going to be attacking. Also, another one that everybody needs to know, he's going to be stopping direct-to-consumer advertising for pharmaceutical drugs. There is no other situation. Imagine if they were direct-to-consumer advertising for surgeries, for weight loss surgery, or surgeries on to fix your shoulder. Directly advertising, doctors are advertising on the Super Bowl. Hey, come to my office and I'll do the best surgery I can. Direct to consumer advertising for pharmaceuticals. We're the only one of only two countries, New Zealand, the United States. And I know, and I'm understanding from the FCC chairman that just got in, that is one that's on the chopping block right now. So those
hey, John, really quick, just let's drill down on that for a second, because this is where, and by the way, just heads up, my audience, probably like I'd say 65-70% are more in that libertarian ethic, right? So they see that as, well, isn't that freedom of speech? Shouldn't you be able to advertise a product because you're selling it and you're allowed to? What's the gray line? Is there a gray line? Help us paint that picture a little bit.
Well, sure, absolutely, because it's a direct to consumer advertising. I'm a libertarian at heart as well, like freedom of choice. For example, the food pyramid, I think it should be a guidance, Brian. If I want to go eat pizza and tacos tonight, I should get to go eat pizza and tacos. But if I have a healthier version that tastes the same, which there is, a tastes better or healthier version, I should have that option. President Trump likes Big Macs and Diet Cokes. There's not going to be a law that says you can't eat Big Macs and Diet Cokes. That's never going to happen. However, when it comes to advertising things that a consumer can't choose to get on his own, here's the problem, Brian, and I want your libertarian friends to listen. If I can invest in making you buy my product, I can invest millions of dollars into your podcast, you're likely to represent those products in spite of the problems with those products. So if they had to really give you the truth about these products, and couldn't just show you fishing with your son, and they can finish it off with just those things like could cause heart disease or whatever, because of the millions of dollars that my assistant's got to get me some water. She ran out to get it. Because of the millions of dollars they can, thank you so much, that they can back up, that they basically control the narrative, Brian. So they don't have to, they can just lie to you about what these things do. And no other industry could do that. If I was sitting here saying a car dealership could tell you that their Chevys were way better than they are, or they just lie about them and spend millions of dollars, and that you as a news media person couldn't say anything bad about Chevys because you get your advertising pulled, that system just doesn't work. So it's
and John, I'll let you get a drink of water. Because I do have a comment for that. Because we've never seen that happen in the past 5 years, when a big, pandemic hit the world, and we were told that these little certain somethings were absolutely safe and effective. And you were questioning that. You were questioning the science, John. Actually, you know what? You're not even questioning science. You're anti-science, right? Because you got to trust me. Trust the science. Dr. Anthony Fauci, of course, because he is the science. We all know that, right? Which is also why he received a pardon, not just for COVID, but going back to 2014, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But that's the point, right? That's the point. When you had all these chuckling idiots, pardon the expression, but like your Chris Cuomo's of the world, and your George Stephanopoulos and your what's his name from Morning Joe Scarborough, like when you have all these clucking hens and chuckling idiots on the idiot box, and they're just saying, yeah, this is safe and effective. This is safe and effective. This is safe and effective. And then they finish their segment and it goes, CNN brought to you by Pfizer, right? Like that is exactly what you're talking about here.
That is exactly what I'm talking about, Brian, but it goes deeper than that. But yes, you just called the one that we can see out. But as it's coming out, we're seeing that Pfizer would pay TikTok people $50,000 just to tell their audience that they should get the vaccine and tell them about the vaccine. These are medical procedures that you're injecting your body that have a piece of white paper that shows the things that can go wrong. It's white, it's blank. There's so much wrong with it, Brian, that it creates this that they own the media that's out there, and they can lie about it. They can have this TikTok player or CNN, Cuomo. They've proved that Cuomo knew that it didn't stop you from. He had seen the documents. People have him on tape that it was killing people, that they were not getting COVID immunity, but yet he was getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to tell the people to get the jab. That system doesn't work. That's not a free market libertarian system. That's a government protecting their backside of the pharmaceuticals, because Anthony Fauci and all the other guys at FDA are all getting a paycheck. Every time you got jabbed with the vaccine for free and got donuts because you got it for free, they were getting a paycheck because you were still paying for it, Brian. You were just paying it out of your tax dollars, and they were hiding that. So that's the thing. In a real free market, sure, advertise whatever you want in the free market will fix those problems, because people will truthfully be able to tell you that when I bought that Chevy, I hate to pick on Chevy, but I bought that Chevy, the wheels fell off the day I drove it off the lot. If Chevy can force the media not to tell you the wheels went off the lot, that system doesn't work. So if it's a free market system, I totally agree, but no other country in the world, because it's built in that if I can lie to you about a product that you then inject in your body and hide the results of that, which they've done, and then profit at the same time. Now I can not only control the narrative, but I also control finding out what you get to know as well as a consumer. That's the problem.
Here, John, I'm gonna propose an idea. You tell me if I'm on the right track here. What if, instead of just outright banning pharmaceutical ads, that RFK was like, you know what we're going to allow? We're actually going to allow anti-pharmaceutical ads on TV. So, right? So a 1-for-1. And I'm thinking of these old commercials. What were they? The truth.org, I think it was. It was something like that, where it would show like a horrible story of some smoker, right? And then be like, you had the little thing in his throat, like, I can't talk anymore. And then he would be like, this is my lung. And it's like all full of tar and gunk. Why not do something like that, but with folks who, and you mentioned it, right? At the end of every pharmaceutical ad, it's like, the results not typical, may cause blindness, death, heart attacks. Like, go through the laundry list of possible negative side effects, and have those people who have realized those negative side effects be in a commercial and say, yeah, this is a very real possibility of these medicines. And I think, John, at the end of the day too, it just comes down to like time preference, right? Like, I take a medicine, I might not see the negative reaction for a week, a month, a year, a decade, but it exists, right? The outcome is still there. What say you? Is that idea, something to consider? Or
I like the idea, Brian, but as a true libertarian, we might say, hey, let them advertise the current, keep the system in place. Here's what doesn't work. If they can invest in social media platforms like YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and call it medical misinformation when you get vaccinated and you have an injury or somebody dies in your family, they stop you from telling that story.
Yep.
There's so many people that were censored because of the money. So in a free market system, if you're offering a vaccine that supposedly protects you from COVID, but then thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people have bad side effects, all of us have seen people be censored. That is where the system breaks down. That's not a free market system. That's the government protecting its investment in the vaccines that they're pushing, and then the profits they get. So if it's truly a free market system, we would have known the problems with the vaccine right off the bat, because the actual testing they were doing originally, Brian, people were dying. People died. People were having adverse effects. I think the numbers with the VAERS system, where they've proven by the CDC itself that only less than 1% of people actually report, that's proven. If they've reported 50,000 deaths through the CDC, through the VAERS system, Brian, you can imagine it's got to be somewhere to 500,000. And everybody's has an uncle or aunt that died suddenly, and you ask, did they get the vaccine? And nobody wants to talk about it.
I'm sharing this really quick on the screen for the video viewer. This episode right here, Trista's story, a young life stolen by the COVID vaccine, was, to your point, one of those episodes that was banned. I had it on YouTube and they nuked it because it was telling the story. It was a horrible, horrific, terrifying story of having Trista's parents on my show and outlining how their daughter went from a lively, I believe, 18-year-old to passing away within, I think it was like weeks. And just to see the quickness that her body deteriorated. And the fact that I wasn't allowed to share her story, I wasn't allowed to counter that narrative. I mean, we had dozens of videos on our channel get nuked. We are still demonetized to this day on YouTube, surprisingly. Is it really surprising? I don't know. But like the fact, exactly. And the fact that I wasn't allowed to just like give a perspective. Like if I'm wrong, great, challenge me, present the alternative, like show that I'm an idiot, go for it. Pharmaceutical companies, I'd have nothing to hide. I'm not making bazillions of dollars on this. I'm trying to tell people stories from people who are living through the negative outcomes, in this case of this jab, right? And nope, not allowed to. I'm actually questioning whether or not this episode's going to get throttled or whatnot on YouTube, because we're talking about issues that we're not supposed to talk about, right? And this goes to, I think, where RFK has such value, John, because RFK, just by the very nature that he is at HHS now, it is opening up the doors to conversations that would traditionally not be allowed, right? We're talking about examining the childhood vaccine schedule. We're talking about pharmaceutical ads on television. We're talking about the crap they're putting in our food. Like, if you were to go to your average person and show them how terribly damaging this toxic sludge that we end up putting into our foods in the name of preservatives, or in the name of flavor, or in the name of color, right? People would freak out. But, and here's the big but, John, this is why people eat this stuff, is because, well, it got through the FDA, right? It went through these different channels. It's got to be safe, right? They wouldn't just let me eat this stuff and let this go into the market if it wasn't safe, because the FDA and all these different institutions present themselves as, we're the good guys. We're going to tell you what's safe and what's not safe. And if it's not safe, we're not going to let it hit the store shelves. But the opposite's true. And it breeds distrust. And that distrust that has been bred for decades, I think, came really to an ugly head here back during COVID, which is, man, for every negative thing, John, that came from COVID, I look at where we are today and I say, you know what? Maybe blessing in disguise. Because for the folks who very much in the Make America Healthy camp, who were you guys have been pounding this drum for decades, it opened the door to the folks who now are opening their eyes to see that maybe things aren't the way that they've been presented. Maybe I have been lied to. Like, I had people in my life who they would never, ever consider like any of the Make America Healthy stuff. They were like, that's kook stuff, right? And then COVID happened, and I see them liking all my Facebook posts, being like, what's going on? And that just speaks to the narrative, the conversation, both in terms of our national politics, but I would dare say, John, our global politics has changed. Even despite the negative circumstances, it did change for the better. What say you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that it's been a blessing in disguise, because I didn't get vaccines before the COVID thing. So that's enough to get you stricken off of YouTube right there. But I did have friends and people that had adverse effects from it. And even if I warned them or whatever, even if I warned them, it's still, they had to have the adverse effects or see somebody affecting their life. What you saw, Brian, over this 4-year period or 5-year period with COVID is a microcosm of the cancer world for the last 70 years. Again, Brian.
Yeah, tell us more.
If it's true, what I'm saying, which it is, that we've had the answer to cancer for 70 years, we've won the war already. It's already won, Brian. Nobody you know ever has to die of cancer. Nobody you know. That will get you struck from so many things. I've been stopped off of every type of podcast. You mention my name on YouTube sometimes and it gets you stopped. You mention the name of my company, it gets you stopped. Here's the point. We've won the battle for 70 years. But the hardest part for me, Brian, was to tell people to listen to me before they just said, oh, if we knew the answer to the schmancer, it would have every doctor. My doctor's gone to Harvard and he's been at school for 10 years. He would know this truth, John. So who are you to tell me that we've known? Now that COVID's happened, people are like, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. I had Brian telling me, don't get this vaccine. And Brian's not a doctor. He told me about this, and Brian was right. So maybe a doctor's educated, maybe a doctor is paid for his entire education is paid for by a company that can also spend billions of dollars to advertise to you. That company only teaches your doctor how to sell its wares. And if I just made this all up and then I said, wait a minute, you also can't sue that company. Not only can they advertise to you and tell you whatever they want, but you know what? If anything bad happens to you, you also can't sue them. Right? There is no other industry. What? You would say, what? What if I drive my Chevy off the lot and the wheels fall off, I can't sue them either? Well, maybe I better buy a Model A or a Ford or something that has to tell me the truth, can't spend billions of dollars lying to me, and I can sue them if something bad happens. So that's the system we're in, and we're working our way through it. And RFK has made it actually so that we there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that some of these things, it's mind-blowing, Brian. The things I'm hearing, I would have never believed 5 years ago before COVID happened that it could even be possible in my lifetime. And so thankfully, it's going to be possible in my lifetime and in your lifetime, that we're going to make America healthy again by just having some transparency and telling people the truth instead of lying to them.
Wow. I mean, what a change that will be, right, John? And for the better. And how about this? As we're going towards the tail end of the episode here, we've talked a lot about not doom and gloom so much, just the unfortunate realities of where we are today, right? And we have to understand where we are to understand where we can go. So, John, here is where I'm going to tee you up to bring us home here today. What would you say if we end 2025, right? What would be a success looking at RFK over at HHS? What are like a few handful of things you think we're going to be able to go out of 2025 and say, yep, skins on the board. We got the win. Awesome. What does that look like?
Well, one of the number one things, I got this directly from his attorney, the head of the Children's Defense Fund, Mary Holland. I spoke to her here in Phoenix, Arizona at a conference. And she told me, John, we have all the receipts. We have all the statistics. We have all the proof that shows how healthy someone is that chooses this path and how healthy someone is that chooses this path. Once RFK Jr. gets confirmed, she told me this a month before he was, we're going to be able to release those statistics, and everybody's going to be able to have at them. The pharmaceutical companies, if they can show that getting this specific vaccine means that your health goes way up, Brian, wouldn't you get that vaccine?
You think, yeah.
You think. If it shows that your health is way lower, or you're more obese, or you have more diabetes, then you probably might not get that one. You might go, that all that's true. So that's one of the big wins, is transparency. Because as your libertarian audience knows, they don't want to be told what to do. You just want to know the truth so you can make your own decision. Nobody should tell you how to live your life. That's the number one way that they're going to be able to help us. The second way, by the end of 2025, is that our foods, we're going to have absolute options. If we go to McDonald's, we're going to have an option to eat the bun that has 4 ingredients. There's fast food restaurants already switching to tallow, which is not necessarily healthy for you. Brian, I'm not going, it's healthy for you, but it's not poisonous to you. Our food contains red dye number 3, red dye number 41, all these poisonous things that every other country has banned, but except the US, because it's so profitable. We buy so much more of that junk because it's also addictive. Out of those 30 ingredients, you can pick any garbage food up out of those 30 ingredients, which you should still be able to buy, but you should have the transparency to go, here's the same food from Europe, and see what the consumer does. See what the consumer decides to do. I already know what's going to happen because people are waking up. I'm watching it happen all over the place. There's restaurants that are advertising tallow. We now use tallow. Fast food restaurants, we use tallow. Choosing natural, healthy things or things that aren't poison from you does not mean you're taking away your choices. It just means our health is going to improve. Eating food closer to nature is so those are the two main things that I say 2025, and all the other things like the vaccine transparency and all those type of things, be able to not have direct to consumer advertising or take away their ability to stop people from doing news reports. Either way, they can't stop someone if they're spending advertising dollars. They should be able to tell the truth about the positives and negatives about that pharmaceutical. So those are some of the big wins I know we're having. We're having other major wins. Brian, I do this for a living all day long, and it's hard for me to keep track of all the wins we're getting.
Getting so tired of winning, as one Donald John Trump said. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. John, this has been a great conversation, and I absolutely want folks to be able to not just take away this conversation and really think about the way that they're looking at the things they're putting in their body, but also the way they're looking at their narratives, right? And I think if anything, just to put a nice little bow in this episode today, folks, it's that you don't have to support like, the RFK approach to lifestyle, right? You don't have to. What we're asking for is just simple, like, education and information, right? Just to be able to make a decision as an educated consumer versus just being told, yeah, this is safe. It's not safe. That's the piece right there. So I do have, go ahead, John.
Transparency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Transparency. If you're talking to me and I'm allowed to lie to you and get away with it, that's not transparent. So that's what it is. We should be held to a standard of being truthful, showing studies that have happened, using these retrospectives. That's transparency. That's the key word.
Now, John, I'm going to ask you one final question, and this maybe is a little bit, maybe it needs more than one question to be answered, but are there any concerns that, let's say, RFK goes in and he does all these great things, right? And we make some real substantive changes, and then for whatever reason, it's like Star Wars, Revenge of the Leftists, right? And they come back in full force, and all of a sudden we have Rachel Levine 2.0 as HHS Secretary. Are there any concerns that the progress that we're making here over the next year, 3 years, 4 years will be reversed, and maybe to be leveraged, like using these different institutions to actually go further than they were prior to RFK? Is there any concern there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I tell people, friends, foe, whatever, if you're into health, this is the time to get it out there. You can't sit back now. We can't celebrate and eat our, celery and carrots and think that in 2 to 4 years, things are going to change. We have to do what we need to do. And I'm doing that every day. Being on here, Brian, you allowing me to be on here, tell your audience, who is this John Richardson guy? What's he talking about? We know the answer to cancer. What's he saying? I want to find out more, because everybody on your show has somebody that's, and if I'm being honest and you think I'm earnest and I know we have the answer to cancer, we can wipe out cancer in the next 4 years. We can't sit on our butts and wait for RFK to do it all for us. He's one man. It's going to take all of us telling our neighbors and our friends and telling them the truth and getting it out there. So absolutely, I'm concerned. I tell people we have a 1 year, 11 months till they may have a blue landslide. They may cheat. They may do whatever and have a blue landslide. And we might be on the other side of this. So the more we can educate people, because once you get up here, Brian, they're never going to take it away. Once I know I can eat an apricot seed and it's not going to kill me and it's going to help me nutritionally, they can't take that out of my brain. No matter what they do on the top, no matter how they lie and cheat and steal, we are educated from the bottom. So it's actually more important what you're doing, Brian, than what RFK is doing, because you represent another 1,000 people out there telling the truth and getting this news to people so they can't get stolen right back.
Yeah, and we talk about this in the world of sales, right, John? Because I'm a sales exec by day trade. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So help people see things for the first time that they will never be able to unsee. And this is exactly the opportunity I think we have right now with RFK in HHS. John, this has been a great conversation. I unfortunately looked at the clock and I realized I already have kept you 5 minutes over than I had promised. So do us a favor, bring us home, tell folks where they can go ahead, follow you, learn more. And of course, Operation World Without Cancer. We want folks to be able and go ahead and check that out as well. So with that being said, John, floor is yours. Bring us home.
Yeah, rncstore.com, real easy, not Republican National Committee, rncstore.com. You can go on my website. That's where you can find out. You can read all sorts of free things, watch videos about all this stuff. And it's not a sales pitch. What I teach people is how to make it change their life. I make things available to them, but what I teach people how to change their life directly on their own. So rncstore.com, you can sign up as a customer and get a lot of free information. We have videos and books and things. So that's how you do it. rncstore.com. Sign up for our newsletter.
All right, good stuff, John. We will make sure we include all those links in the show notes. And folks, again, if you got some value from today's episode, you know the drill. Go ahead, give it a share when you do tag yours truly at B Nichols Liberty. You can find me over on X, on Facebook, on Instagram. Also, the Brian Nichols Show is airing in its video entirety over on your favorite video platforms like the aforementioned X and Facebook, but also over on YouTube until we're nuked, and Rumble for when we are nuked. And also, the podcast is a podcast. So go ahead to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever it is you get your podcast. Hit subscribe. And of course, when you go ahead and check out each episode, please go ahead, leave us a nice rating and review, 5 stars if you'd be so kind, and then head down below into the comments. Keep the conversation going. Do you agree? Do you disagree? We'd love to hear about it. please go ahead and have that dialogue down below. And with that being said, folks, I think we're going to go ahead and put a pin in today's conversation. So with that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for John Richardson. We'll see you next week.
God bless.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.